of course, from China's past conduct, not only vis-a-vis India, but also in its own region in the Western Pacific, and internally, whether it's in Tibet or in Xinjiang, suggests that with the kind of power that has now been centralized in him, we will not see any change in the direction of his policies. On the contrary, he'll become tougher and more assertive, and will actually push the situation in our region and internationally in directions which we may not want. We know what happened at the 20th Party Congress. Power has now really been centralized as never before. Earlier on, if some factions of the Communist Party were accommodated within the power structure, that has now been discarded as policy. The Standing Committee, as everybody is saying, consists of his yes men who will do exactly what he wants. I was quite interesting when he visited Mao, whatever it is, where the revolution began. All of them were wearing the same dress, some kind of tunic and this and that. I think it was a question of thinking alike internally and looking alike externally. I was a bit surprised, and here I'd like Srikanth to give his thinking on it. I was a bit surprised when I read the entire speech. It was pretty tedious reading it, very repetitive. That is refrain that is right through the speech about the leadership of the party. I would have thought that in the last 72 years of power, the party being in power, that this question should no longer be on the mind of the leadership or the public. The party is all supreme. So why does he, in every single paragraph, speak about the leadership of the Communist Party? Is it that there are differences, there's a struggle, there's a need for him to mobilize the members of the Congress who then represent, of course, people from various parts of China, to make sure that they remain loyal to the party? And he says this even to the PLA, that they must accept the absolute leadership of the party. Why does he have to say that again and again? He's been saying this for so many years now. Then there is this other thing about the vulnerability that China is not looked upon as a democracy, is looked upon as an authoritarian state, autocracy, and therefore he has to alter the debate. And he says that in his speech about improving China's image and everything else, that stressing on this whole process of democracy, which he thinks is the broadest, most genuine, and most effective form of democracy. He talks about impartial judiciary, law-based governance, which then suggests that there have been problems which the public has suffered from, when he talks about the ills that have affected China previously. More importantly, the manner in which he trashes predecessors. In fact, he says in his speech, the lack of clear understanding and effective actions by them slide towards weak, watered-down party leadership and shocking cases of corruption, which made me think that maybe the unceremonious exit of Hu Jintao was not accidental, not entirely because of health reasons. But there is a view that this China, youngsters in China are becoming lazy, fun-loving, hedonistic, flat. What is the phrase? Flat bag or something? But he refers to that in his speech, which then suggests that he is going to tighten up in the sociological, in the area very, very strongly in order to make sure that they imbibe and behave according to the values of Chinese socialism with Chinese characteristics. Incidentally, he also talks about during his predecessor's time, the online discourse being rife with disorder. This is what he says textually. Which then again suggests that he's going to impose even more censorship. One thought that already they were controlling the internet fully. What more they can do, Silicon can tell us. Then there is the more positive agenda, where he dishes out pretty impressive statistics about China's economic growth. In the last 10 years, they've doubled their GDP, they've doubled their per capita income, and of course what we know with regard to the biggest exporting country in the world. But there's a lot of stress on innovation of China becoming a technological power. In this context, it's interesting that he talks about the 2035 targets, but Srikant, he doesn't mention anything about the 2049 targets. So should one read something into it? And then, of course, he realistically accepts that there are a lot of headwinds. In fact, he says that in pretty strong vocabulary. He notes there's anti-globalization trends, unilateralism, protectionism. He sees a lot of turbulence ahead and external attempts to suppress and contain China. And he uses this very modish vocabulary, which I've never understood what it is. Black swan, maybe I've begun to understand, but grey rhino, I don't know what it means. But he talks about that, and he talks about high winds and choppy waters and dangerous storms, which then require a very strong party leadership and a fighting spirit by China. And yet he talks about new strategic opportunities. So I find a little contradiction there as to what are the strategic opportunities that anybody can have when there are storms raging around. But they are, then you seek shelter. You don't go out and expose yourself to more danger. Interestingly, on the PRI, there's just 2 lines in 2 separate paragraphs. That's it. It doesn't wax eloquent on BRI. There is some reference to Global Development Initiative and Global Security Initiative. And of course, we are on the wrong side of history according to the Americans, but he says that China is on the right side of history. So he obviously seeks, how should I say, I mean, his ethics about being right side of history seem to be American. And finally, about the PLA and enhancing the military strategic capabilities of China with local wars. Now, Taiwan is not going to be a local war. It can actually trigger a world war of sorts. So when he talks about local wars, clearly he has Ladakh in mind, and India in mind. And when they put visuals of Galwan clash onto the screen in the Great Hall of the People, and when Kifa Bao, whatever his name is present in the audience, I think it's a very serious, well, it's a message that is being delivered to India. On Taiwan, he says a lot about Taiwan, but assumes that the Taiwanese love the Chinese and finally they will accept them. But he says he won't promise to renounce use of force. Well, this is by and large what I gleaned from his speech. And as everybody believes that this is going to be the template of Chinese foreign policies, internal and external policies going ahead, I don't think it all amounts to a very optimistic scenario so far as India, the region, and the world is concerned. So Sirika, over to you, and I hope you can clarify some of these mysteries.